When someone tries to burn everything you've built to the ground, survival means rewriting the rules they played by. My name is Robert Garner, and I'm 35 years old. I sit alone most nights after the kids are asleep, piecing together what remains of my life after betrayal cut it to ribbons. I sold our house, my boat, even my mother's sapphire necklace, her final gift to me, all to pay Paula's $420,000 brain surgery bill. I fed her with a spoon, changed her bandages, and slept in hospital chairs believing sacrifice would heal us both. Meanwhile, she plotted with Marcus Price to leave me with nothing but the clothes on my back. Noah and Lily deserved better. They deserved the bedtime stories, the cozy home, our plans for lakeside summers. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. The soapy water had gone cold. I scrubbed at a pan that was already clean, my hands needing something to do while my mind raced through calculations. Even with everything I'd sold, the medical bills kept coming. We were down to our last few $100s, but Paula was alive, standing on her own now, hair just starting to grow back after the surgery. That's what mattered. I heard the front door open, then close. 2 sets of footsteps. Robert. Paula's voice was steady in a way I hadn't heard in months. No pain-induced tremor, just cold certainty. I turned, dish towel in hand, and saw a man in a charcoal suit standing beside her. Tall, thinning blonde hair with a leather portfolio tucked under one arm. The stranger's face carried a practiced, neutral expression that somehow still managed to look down on my work clothes. "This is Bill Mercer," Paula said. "My attorney." The water dripping from my hands felt suddenly loud in the kitchen. "Attorney?" I set the towel down. "What for?" Bill stepped forward, sliding the portfolio onto the counter. He flipped it open with manicured fingers, revealing a stack of documents. "These are divorce papers," he said, "and a custody petition. Mrs. Garner would like to proceed as efficiently as possible." The kitchen tilted. I gripped the edge of the sink. "Divorce? Paula, what are you talking about? You just got home from—" "I've made my decision." She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her fingers worked methodically at her sleeve cuff, a nervous habit I'd known for years. "It's over, Robert." I stared at the papers. Bold black letters spelled out, "Petition for dissolution of marriage and emergency custody order." Emergency? Heat crawled up my neck. What emergency? The kids are fine. We're all finally getting back to normal. Bill cleared his throat. "My client has concerns about the children's welfare." The rage came suddenly, burning away the shock. I stepped toward them, water dripping from my hands onto the linoleum. "I sold everything to save your life, Paula. Our house, my boat, my mother's necklace. I slept in hospital chairs for 3 months. And this is what you do?" Paula finally looked at me then, her eyes flat and empty, like she'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "Robert, I always hated you." 5 words. Surgical precision. I flinched like she'd swung at me. Bill smirked, tapping the papers with his index finger. "You should review these immediately. It's Paula's kitchen now." I watched, paralyzed, as Paula reached into my jacket hanging by the door. She removed our last debit card and slipped it into her pocket. "You don't even have a place for the kids to sleep," she said. "You're not safe for them right now." "Not safe?" My voice cracked. "I sold everything to keep you alive. Don't you dare call me unsafe because you plotted this behind my back." "Sign the temporary agreement," Bill said, sliding a pen across the counter. "We can make this quick." I didn't touch it. "I want to see Noah and Lily." "They're at my sister's," Paula said, "where they'll stay until this is settled." The courtroom clock ticked past 4. The judge, a tired woman with silver hair, skimmed the emergency petition one last time. "Given the current housing situation," she said, glancing at me over reading glasses, "I'm granting temporary physical custody to Mrs. Garner, with supervised visitation for Mr. Garner pending the full hearing." My court-appointed attorney shifted uncomfortably beside me. We'd had 15 minutes to prepare. Bill Mercer nodded smugly at Paula across the aisle. That night I stuffed clothes into a duffel bag. The rental company had already posted an eviction notice. Paula's name was on the lease, not mine. I grabbed my toolbox from the garage, the family photo album, and Noah's favorite baseball glove. Lily's stuffed rabbit sat on her bed. I picked it up, pressing my face against its worn fur for a moment before tucking it carefully into the duffel. She'd want it when I saw her again. I loaded everything into my truck. The clock on the dashboard read 11:37 p.m. I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour before pulling behind a gas station, parking in the shadows near the dumpsters. The neon sign buzzed overhead, casting alternating red and blue across the windshield. In the back seat, I stretched out as best I could. 6'2" doesn't fit well in a Ford F-150 cab. I stared at the sagging ceiling liner, counting the stains while listening to the hum of the ice machine against the back wall of the station. Remember when Noah was born? How I'd promised him I'd always be there? How could I explain this to a 7-year-old? A pair of headlights swept across the windshield, bright enough to make me squint. The beams cut off. Through the side window, I saw expensive shoes step onto the gravel. A man in a suit approached, stopping directly beside the hood of my truck. I woke to knuckles rapping on my window. The blue light of early dawn made everything look underwater. I jerked upright, disoriented, my neck stiff from sleeping crooked against the door. A man stood beside my truck, mid-40s, stocky build, in a charcoal suit that looked expensive even in the weak light. He stepped back as I rolled down the window, giving me space. Robert Garner? His voice was controlled, professional. I need 5 minutes of your time. I reached for the door handle instinctively, ready to defend myself. But something in his eyes stopped me. Not threat, recognition. How do you know my name? My voice came out rough from sleep. My name is Caleb Dwyer. I'm a financial investigator. He held up both hands, palms forward. I'm not here to cause trouble. Just the opposite. I got out of the truck, stretching my cramped muscles. The gas station was quiet except for an employee hosing down the concrete near the pumps. What do you want? I asked. Caleb's jaw tightened. I've been tracking a man named Marcus Price for the last 8 months. He destroyed my marriage, and now I have evidence he's doing the same to you. The name meant nothing to me. I don't know any Marcus Price. No, Caleb said. But your wife does. Very well. Something cold slid down my spine. What are you talking about? Marcus Price was sleeping with my wife. That's how this started. Caleb's voice remained even, but I could hear the rage underneath. When I found out, I did what I do professionally. I followed the money. What I found. He shook his head. Your wife isn't just having an affair with him. They're partners in something much worse. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick manila folder. Helping you destroy Marcus is the only justice I'm going to get. My divorce is already final. I took the folder, my hands suddenly unsteady. Inside were bank statements, screenshots of text messages from unfamiliar numbers, scanned pawn tickets, and printouts of a ledger with Silverline Rehab Consulting at the top. What is all this? I asked, flipping through pages of numbers that blurred together. I first noticed unusual charges on my wife's credit cards, Caleb explained. Traced them to Silverline. When I dug deeper, I found Marcus using it as a shell company. He's been moving money, your money, through this LLC since your wife's surgery. I froze on a color printout. It was surveillance footage from a pawn shop. The date stamp showed 3 months ago, when Paula was still recovering when I was working double shifts to make rent. There she was at the counter, hair growing back from surgery, sliding a velvet box forward. My mother's sapphire necklace. The only thing of my mother's I'd kept. She told me the insurance company needed more documentation before they'd pay. I whispered. She said they'd denied the claim temporarily. Caleb pointed to another page. There was no denial. The policy paid out, directly to Silverline for ongoing rehabilitation services. I flipped to a page of text messages. A number labeled Paula Berner to Marcus. Bleed him dry first. After temporary custody locks in, we can move the rest. What about the sapphires? Already handled. Told him they needed more paperwork. The gas station parking lot seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I leaned against my truck, pages clutched in my hand. My kids, I managed. She has my kids. That's why I'm here, Caleb said. She's been planning this for months, systematically draining every asset you had. The surgery was real, but what came after? He tapped the folder. This is fraud. Documented fraud. The shock was fading, replaced by something that burned hotter. Not just anger, resolve. What do I do with this? I asked. You need counsel. Good counsel. Caleb pulled out a business card. Ava Lynn. She specializes in cases like this, when one spouse has committed fraud during divorce proceedings. She turned my case around. She'll do the same for you. I took the card, ran my thumb over the embossed lettering. Why are you helping me? Because Marcus walks away every time, Caleb said flatly. From my marriage, from others before that. He finds vulnerable families, inserts himself, and leaves destruction behind. This time I want him to pay, and your wife along with him. I nodded slowly, gathering the papers back into the folder. Thank you. Call Ava today, Caleb insisted. Time matters. After he drove away, I sat in my truck cab for a long time, staring at the business card. Finally, I picked up my phone and dialed the number, putting it on speaker as I sorted through the evidence Caleb had given me. A woman's voice answered after 2 rings. Ava Lynn's office. How may I help you? So let me understand this chain clearly, Ava Lynn said, her manicured finger tracing the paper trail across her walnut desk. Your wife pawned the sapphire necklace for cash while still recovering from surgery. That cash, along with the insurance payout, went directly into the Silverline Rehab entity, which is actually a shell company operated by Marcus Price, who is also her affair partner. That's correct, Caleb confirmed, arranging another set of documents beside the first. The money trail is clean. I've marked the transfers in yellow. It was late morning. Ava's office smelled like coffee and leather-bound law books. The downtown view from her 12th floor window made the world seem small and orderly, nothing like the chaos my life had become. I leaned forward. And she did all this while I was working double shifts to keep our heads above water, while I was feeding her with a spoon. A quick flash of memory hit me. Paula's face turned away as I held a spoonful of soup to her lips, her eyes distant even then. Had she been planning this the whole time I'd been taking care of her? Ava Lynn placed her palms flat on the desk. Mr. Garner, I'm taking your case. This isn't just a divorce, it's fraud. Potentially criminal fraud. Relief washed through me. What do we do? First, you need stable housing. Month to month is fine for now, but you need a physical address with beds for your children. I'm staying in my truck. Not anymore, Ava cut in. Today. This afternoon. 2 bedrooms minimum. She looked down at her notepad and continued. Second, we assemble sworn declarations. Yours, Mr. Dwyer's, and anyone else who can testify to your care of the children. Third, we file to vacate the temporary custody orders based on material misrepresentation and fraud upon the court. How fast can we move? I asked. I can have the motion filed by tomorrow afternoon. She slid a retainer agreement across the desk. Sign here. After signing, Caleb and I left Ava's office. I'll take you to see an apartment, he said. One of my clients manages a complex with month-to-month options. I spent the afternoon signing a lease on a small 2-bedroom apartment. It wasn't much. Beige walls, worn carpet, but it had a kitchen with a window above the sink and a second bedroom just big enough for kids. By late afternoon, I'd used my last credit card to buy bunk beds from a discount furniture warehouse. I assembled them myself on the bedroom floor, carefully labeling the top bunk Noah and the bottom Lily, with small wooden signs I'd picked up at the dollar store. I wasn't sure when I'd get to show them their new room, but I wanted it ready. My phone buzzed as I finished tightening the last bolt. It was Caleb. I've got something new, he said without preamble. More texts from Marcus to Paula. He's coaching her on creating incidents during kid exchanges. What do you mean, incidents? He's telling her to create situations where she can claim you're unstable. One text specifically says, make sure someone sees him get frustrated at handoff. We need witnesses for the next filing. I closed my eyes, remembering the last exchange 2 days ago. Paula had been late, then questioned me about a small bruise on Noah's knee from playing soccer. Send it all to Ava, I said. Already did. I spent the next hour hanging a shower curtain with dinosaurs for Noah and arranging Lily's stuffed animals on her bunk. Small touches to make this empty apartment feel like something stable, something like home. The knock on my door came at 7:13 p.m. I opened it to find a uniformed police officer standing in the hallway. "Robert Garner?" he asked. "That's me. I'm serving you with this protective order." He handed me a thick stack of papers. "You're ordered to have no contact with Paula Garner except as specifically outlined for child custody exchanges, which must now be supervised." I scanned the front page. The allegation that I had shoved Paula during our last child exchange, creating reasonable fear for her safety. "This is a lie," I said. "I never touched her." The officer's expression remained neutral. "I'm just serving the papers, sir." Court date is printed on page 2. After he left, I called Ava, my hands shaking with anger. "Don't react," she said immediately. "This is exactly what Caleb's texts warned us about. They're building a case to remove your visitation entirely. But it's completely false." "I know. Meet me at my office tomorrow at 7 a.m. We'll prepare a response and request expedited review of the surveillance footage from that exchange." "Where did it happen?" "The gas station parking lot on Ridgeway." "Good. That means cameras. Do not contact Paula. Do not violate the order in any way." I hung up and stood in the silent apartment. I placed the protective order on the kitchen counter, right beside the new toothbrushes I'd bought for Noah and Lily. One blue, one pink. I'd labeled them with their names, another small promise of normalcy. My jaw set as I stared at the papers. Tomorrow we'd fight back. The Ava Lynn law offices looked different in the pale light of 7 a.m., emptier, more serious. When I walked into the conference room, Ava was already arranging documents in precise stacks, while Caleb hunched over his laptop. "I didn't sleep," I said, dropping into a chair. The protective order sat in front of me like a bomb. "Good morning to you, too," Ava replied without looking up. "We've been working since 5. She slid a coffee cup toward me. "Drink this. We need you sharp." I took a sip. The coffee was black and strong enough to strip paint. "So what's the plan?" I asked. "This order claims I shoved her. I never touched her." "Which is why," Caleb said, turning his laptop toward me, "I spent the night getting this." The screen showed security camera footage from the gas station parking lot. Date and timestamp matched our last exchange. In grainy black and white, Paula and I stood near her car. Noah and Lily moved between us, their backpacks looking too big for their small frames. Paula's mouth moved rapidly. My body language showed frustration, but my hands stayed firmly in my jacket pockets the entire time. 10 feet of separation, Caleb pointed out. "Not once did you come within arm's reach." "I requested this footage last night. Certified copies arrived an hour ago," Ava said. "I've already drafted the emergency motion to vacate." She pushed a thick document toward me. "This is your timeline affidavit. Review it, sign it, and we file at 9 a.m. when the court opens, but..." She held up a finger. "The judge might not rule immediately. That means you're subject to the order until she does." "Meaning?" "Meaning, Robert, you can't see your kids until this is resolved." Ava's voice was matter of fact, but not unkind. "And if you violate the order before it's vacated, you could spend a night in holding." I remembered the summer Noah fell off his bike and wouldn't stop crying until I checked under his bed for monsters. The Christmas when Lily insisted on sitting on my shoulders to put the star on top of the tree. "So she just gets to lie and I can't see my kids?" My voice cracked. "How is that fair?" "It's not," Caleb said quietly. "That's why we're fighting." Ava tapped her pen on the table. "This is standard operating procedure for them. Create an incident, file an order, force you into a corner where you might react poorly." She leaned forward. "Don't give them what they want. We'll handle this by the book." I signed the affidavit, my signature shakier than I wanted it to be. "What happens after we file the motion?" I asked. "We wait for the judge to review. Best case, she vacates by end of day. Worst case..." Ava trailed off. "Worst case what?" "You might spend one night in holding if Paula's attorney pushes for contempt before our motion is heard." But with this video evidence, it won't last. It did last. Just long enough for me to spend one night on a thin mattress in the county holding cell, staring at flickering fluorescent lights that never turned off. 22 hours of wondering if my kids thought I was a monster now. 22 hours of anger burning so hot in my chest I could barely breathe. When I was released the following afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Paula. Hope you enjoyed your accommodations. Next time might be longer. I nearly threw the phone against the wall before Ava's hand closed over mine. Don't respond, she said, appearing beside me in the release area. That's exactly what they want. Evidence of your volatile temper. The judge? I asked, pocketing the phone. Reviewed the footage this morning. Order is vacated and we've been granted an emergency hearing next week. She handed me a folder. We're moving to phase 2. Depositions for Paula and Marcus. Subpoenas for all Silverline banking records. And Bill? I asked, remembering Paula's smug attorney. A cold smile crossed Ava's face. I've prepared a bar complaint. We're holding it until discovery produces the evidence I need, but when it does, she snapped her fingers. His license goes on the line. Back in her conference room, we spent the afternoon preparing for depositions. Ava organized evidence into chronological binders while Caleb transferred files from his laptop. Paula, Marcus, the bank records, the pawn shop, the shell company. We're hitting them all at once, Ava said, closing her binder with a sharp snap. Tomorrow we take their statements under oath. Bring everything. The deposition room was all hard edges and harsh light. The fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead like angry wasps, making everything look a shade too clinical. 5 of us sat around a mahogany table that had seen better days. Me and Ava on one side, Paula and Bill Mercer on the other. Marcus Price sat at a smaller table off to the side, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her stenotype machine, ready to capture every word. I stared at Paula across the table. She'd done her hair differently, slicked back in a severe bun that made her face look sharper. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Ava placed a single sheet of paper on the table. For the record, I'm showing the deponent a phone record. Ms. Garner, is this your phone number? Paula glanced at the paper, then at Bill, who gave a slight nod. Yes, she said. And this secondary number ending in 4873, do you recognize it? A brief hesitation. No. Ava's smile didn't reach her eyes. She placed a stack of text message printouts on the table. I'm now showing the deponent Exhibit B. These are text messages between your primary number and the 4873 number. The content includes, and I quote, "Bleed him dry first and meet at Silverline. R will never see it coming." Paula's face tightened. I don't recall those messages. You don't recall writing, "Once the sapphires are pawned, we'll have enough to start the account"? I don't recall. Bill leaned forward. My client has already stated, I haven't finished my question, counsel. Ava's voice could have cut glass. She slid a photograph across the table. I'm showing the deponent Exhibit C surveillance footage from Crown Pawn dated March 17th of this year. Is that you in the image, holding a sapphire necklace? Paula stared at the photo. I could see it from where I sat. Paula at the counter, my mother's necklace in her hands, the one thing I'd asked her not to sell. Something burned in my throat. That could be anyone, Paula said. Ava placed another document beside the photo. Exhibit D, pawn receipt with signature. Would you like to compare it to your driver's license signature, Ms. Garner? For the first time, I saw Paula's mask crack. She shifted in her seat, one hand clenching into a fist under the table. Bill whispered something in her ear. She shook her head slightly. Moving on, Ava said, turning toward Marcus. Mr. Price, I'm showing you Exhibit E, a vendor ledger for Silverline Rehab Consulting. Marcus's eyes darted between the document and his attorney. These entries show payments processed through an American Express card registered to Melissa Dwyer, wife of Caleb Dwyer. Did you have authorization to use this card? Marcus cleared his throat. On advice of counsel, I declined to answer. I understand. Then let me show you Exhibit F. Emails between yourself and Lakeside Recovery Center. Billing them for rehabilitation services never rendered. Marcus's forehead beaded with sweat. I'd like to request a moment with my attorney. Of course. Marcus and his lawyer left the room. The silence stretched for 20 long minutes. I watched Paula from across the table, but she kept her eyes fixed on a spot on the wall behind me. She looked smaller somehow, less certain. When Marcus returned, his face was the color of old paper. His attorney whispered something to Ava, who nodded. For the record, Ava announced, Mr. Price has agreed to cooperate and provide a sworn statement regarding the financial transactions between Silverline Rehab Consulting and Ms. Garner, as well as testifying to his knowledge of staged incidents intended to interfere with custody arrangements. Paula's head snapped toward Marcus. "You can't." "Ms. Garner," Bill warned, grabbing her arm. Ava wasn't finished. She turned to Bill Mercer. "And now, Mr. Mercer, I'd like to address Exhibit G." She placed an email printout on the table. The subject line read, "Strategy for Garner," and I could make out Bill's firm logo at the top. "This is an email you sent to Paula Garner on April 3rd stating, and I quote, 'Hide Silverline transfers until after temporary custody locks. Judge won't look at financials if we can secure the order first.'" Bill's face drained of color. "That's privileged communication. It was included in the document subpoenaed from Silverline's servers, forwarded by your client to Mr. Price. The privilege was waived the moment she shared it with a third party." Ava reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick document with State Bar Association printed across the top. "This is a draft bar complaint outlining violations of professional ethics, including suborning perjury and concealing evidence. I thought you might want to review it before I file." The court reporter's fingers clicked steadily, recording every word. Bill stared at the document like it might bite him. Ava gathered her papers, closed her briefcase with a decisive click, and stood. "We'll see you in court." I flipped another pancake onto the growing stack, the butter sizzling in the pan. Behind me, Noah and Lily sat at our tiny kitchen table, watching cartoons on a tablet I'd borrowed from Caleb. The volume was low, just enough to hear the familiar theme song and occasional bursts of laughter. "Dad, can I have more syrup?" Noah asked, his plate already a sticky mess. "Just a little more, buddy." I drizzled a thin line across his pancakes. "Don't want you bouncing off the walls tonight." "I want stars," Lily announced, pointing at her pancake. "Stars coming up for the princess." I squeezed the syrup bottle carefully, making a wobbly star pattern. Her eyes lit up like I'd performed magic. The apartment wasn't much, just a basic 2-bedroom with beige walls and worn carpet, but seeing my kids here made it feel more like home than I'd thought possible. 3 days ago, I'd been sleeping in my truck. Tonight, my children were eating dinner at my table. After dinner, we piled onto the couch, a second-hand find that smelled faintly of someone else's fabric softener. Noah leaned against my left side, engrossed in a show about talking animals. Lily curled up on my chest, her small body warm and trusting. "Daddy, when can I bring Mr. Hoppy?" she asked, her eyes already heavy. Mr. Hoppy was the stuffed rabbit I'd given her for her 4th birthday. "Soon, sweetheart, very soon." I stroked her hair, noticing a smudge of maple syrup on her sleeve. The sticky spot would probably leave a stain, but I couldn't bring myself to move her. When her breathing deepened into sleep, I felt something unlock in my chest. This moment right here was what I'd been fighting for. Not the house or the boat or even my mother's necklace. Just the weight of my daughter sleeping against me, trusting me to keep her safe. Noah fell asleep shortly after, and I sat there with both of them, afraid to move, afraid to break the spell. Eventually, I carried them one by one to their room, tucking them into the bunk beds I'd assembled that first night. I stood in the doorway, watching them sleep, memorizing the moment. The phone woke me at 7:14 the next morning. I fumbled for it, my voice groggy. "Robert, it's Ava." Her tone was brisk, energized. "Good news. The judge consolidated the hearings, custody, finances, and the protective order. We're on for Wednesday at 9 a.m. I sat up, instantly alert. 3 days. Yes, and he's taken judicial notice of the gas station video. It's clear you never touched Paula during that exchange. She paused. How are the children? Good. Great, actually. They slept here last night. Excellent. That helps our case, showing you've established a stable environment. I could hear papers shuffling. Be at my office tomorrow at noon. We need to prepare your testimony. After hanging up, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at my reflection in the dark window. 3 days until the hearing that would decide everything. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Caleb stood there, a manila envelope under his arm. Morning, he said, stepping inside. Marcus came through. He laid out the contents of the envelope. Spreadsheets detailing insurance fraud, internal emails discussing the Garner strategy, and a sworn affidavit from Marcus Price himself, admitting to the entire scheme. "Holy shit," I whispered, scanning the documents. "Marcus is saving his own skin," Caleb said, pouring himself coffee. Once he realized how much evidence we had, he decided to roll over on Paula. He tapped the affidavit. "This is our smoking gun." The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. I spent hours at Ava's office rehearsing my testimony until the dates and details became second nature. She coached me to speak clearly, maintain eye contact with the judge, and stay calm no matter what Paula or Bill threw at us. "Don't get emotional," Ava warned. "Just state the facts. The evidence speaks for itself." At night, I practiced in front of the bathroom mirror, working on keeping my voice steady when describing how I'd sold everything to pay for Paula's surgery. Dates, amounts, transactions, all committed to memory. I repeated the timeline over and over. When I sold the house, when I pawned my mother's necklace, when the money disappeared. The morning of the hearing, I put on my best suit, the same one I'd worn to our wedding. It hung looser now. Stress had stripped pounds from my frame. I knotted my tie with careful precision, the routine calming my nerves. Ava and Caleb met me in the courthouse lobby. Ava looked sharp in a charcoal suit, her briefcase bulging with exhibits. Caleb gave me a firm handshake. "Remember," Ava said quietly, "let me lead. Answer only what's asked. The truth is on our side." We watched as the bailiff organized his list, calling parties forward for the morning calendar. The marble floors amplified every footstep, every whisper. I caught sight of Paula across the lobby, standing with Bill. She wore a navy dress I'd never seen before, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. She didn't look in my direction. At 9:05, the heavy wooden doors opened. The bailiff stepped out, clipboard in hand. "Garner v. Garner." Parties stepped forward. "Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?" "I do." My voice echoed in the courtroom as I settled into the witness chair. The wood felt cool against my palms. Across the room, Paula sat with a practiced blank expression, Bill Mercer leaning toward her, whispering. My gaze shifted to the judge, older, white-haired, with reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed documents. Ava approached, her heels clicking deliberately on the hardwood. "Mr. Garner, please tell the court about the financial decisions you made when your wife was diagnosed." I straightened my shoulders. When Paula was diagnosed with a brain tumor, we learned our insurance would only cover part of the necessary surgery and treatment. The total came to $420,000. "And how did you address this shortfall?" "I sold everything we had." My voice caught slightly, but I pushed through. "First, our house. We took a loss selling quickly, but it gave us $290,000 after the mortgage. Then my boat, which brought in $42,000. Still short, I sold personal items, including my mother's sapphire necklace, the only thing I had left of her, for $85,000. And during Mrs. Garner's recovery period, what role did you play in her care?" I swallowed hard, remembering those long nights. I was her full-time caregiver. I fed her when she couldn't feed herself, changed her bandages, administered medication, helped her to the bathroom, slept in chairs by her bed so I could respond immediately if she needed anything. "When did you first suspect something was wrong?" "When she recovered enough to walk steadily, she brought divorce papers. She had already emptied our remaining accounts. She told me." I paused, remembering Ava's coaching. "She said she had always hated me." Bill stood. "Objection, hearsay." The judge waved him off. "Overruled. The witness is recounting a direct conversation." Ava continued. "How did you learn about the financial irregularities?" "A man named Caleb Dwyer approached me the morning after I lost temporary custody. He provided documentation showing Paula had been in a relationship with Marcus Price, and together they had funneled the money I raised for her surgery into a shell company called Silverline Rehab Consulting." Ava walked to her table. "Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Exhibits A through F." She displayed each item on the courtroom monitor. The pawn shop video still of Paula holding my mother's sapphires, bank statements showing wire transfers to Silverline, text messages between Paula and Marcus, Marcus's sworn cooperation statement, And finally, the gas station footage showing me standing with my hands in my pockets during the alleged shoving incident. As the court can clearly see, Ava said, pointing to the gas station video. At no point did Mr. Garner approach, touch, or threaten Mrs. Garner during this exchange. The protective order was filed under false pretenses. The judge reviewed the footage twice, then removed his glasses. Based on this evidence, I'm vacating the protective order immediately. The record will reflect this order was obtained through false statements to the court. Paula's face flushed as Bill whispered urgently to her. Next, Ava called the pawnshop owner, a balding man in an ill-fitting suit who squirmed in the witness chair. Mr. Davis, is this your signature on this receipt for a sapphire necklace purchased from Paula Garner on March 3rd? Yes, but... And were you aware this item was the property of Robert Garner, not Paula Garner? She said it was hers to sell. Did you ask for proof of ownership for an item valued at $85,000? The man looked down. No. Ava displayed the pawnshop's ledger. Your Honor, this ledger shows Mr. Davis paid $85,000 for the necklace, then sold it 2 days later for $130,000. He knew this was not a legitimate transaction. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Davis, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of receiving stolen property. The court will reserve the issue of restitution pending criminal proceedings. Bill rose again. Objection. This pawn transaction is irrelevant to custody. Overruled, the judge snapped. The financial dishonesty speaks directly to character and fitness for custody. Ava then displayed the email from Bill to Paula. Hide Silverline transfers until after temporary custody locks. The judge peered over his glasses. Mr. Mercer, would you care to explain this communication? Bill stood, his confidence visibly shaken. Your Honor, that email has been taken out of context. What possible context would justify advising a client to conceal financial information during custody proceedings? The judge made a notation. I'm marking Exhibit G as a referral to the State Bar for investigation of potential ethics violations. Throughout all this, Paula's expression had hardened into stone. I couldn't recognize the woman I'd once loved in that cold stare. When Ava finished her presentation, she nodded to me. Mr. Garner, is there anything else you wish to tell the court? I turned to face Paula directly. You said you always hated me. Hate me then. But you don't get to erase what I sacrificed and call it a prison. You don't get to weaponize Noah and Lily. The courtroom fell silent. The judge cleared his throat, preparing to deliver his findings. I held my breath as the judge adjusted his glasses, scanned his notes one last time, and began to speak. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony in this matter, he said, his voice filling the silent courtroom, I find compelling proof of deliberate fraud, financial misconduct, and false statements to this court. Paula's shoulders stiffened. Bill stared at the table. First, regarding custody. Primary physical and legal custody of the minor children, Noah and Lily Garner, is hereby restored to Robert Garner, effective immediately. My chest tightened. I'd spent so many nights in that truck staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever tuck my kids in again. Mrs. Garner will receive visitation on alternating weekends, Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Wednesdays from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The judge paused. These visits will be supervised for the first 60 days and are conditioned upon Mrs. Garner's compliance with court-ordered counseling. Paula's face flushed deep red. She whispered something to Bill, who shook his head. I further find that Paula Garner is not a reliable witness. Her testimony contains multiple contradictions against documented evidence and appears calculated to mislead this court. This finding will be noted in the written order. The judge turned a page. Regarding financial matters, Mrs. Garner is ordered to pay restitution for the sapphire necklace at its appraised value of $85,000. The court imposes wage garnishment of 25% on Mrs. Garner's income until full repayment of all diverted funds, plus statutory interest and sanctions of $15,000 for litigation misconduct. I remembered my mother's necklace, the last piece I had of her. The money wouldn't bring it back, but it felt like some kind of justice. The protective order against Robert Garner is vacated with prejudice. The record will reflect it was obtained through false statements. The judge shuffled his papers. Silverline Rehab Consulting LLC is ordered dissolved. With all assets frozen and directed toward restitution, the court takes judicial notice that Marcus Price faces indictment for insurance fraud and money laundering. While Mr. Price has received cooperation credit in his criminal matter, his professional licenses are suspended pending resolution. Marcus wasn't in the courtroom today, probably hiding somewhere, waiting for the fallout. Attorney Bill Mercer is referred to the State Bar for disciplinary review based on evidence of ethics violations, including advising a client to conceal financial information during proceedings. Bill's jaw tightened as he stared straight ahead. Finally, the court refers pawnshop owner James Davis to the district attorney for investigation of receiving stolen property and potential conspiracy charges. The judge set down his papers. This order is effective immediately. Ms. Lynn, please prepare the written order for my signature this afternoon. He struck his gavel once. We're adjourned. Ava squeezed my arm as the courtroom began to empty. Paula stormed out without looking back, Bill trailing behind her. We did it, Ava said. Every piece exactly as planned. I couldn't speak. After months of sleeping in my truck, of wondering if I'd lost everything, of fighting a system that seemed stacked against me, we'd won. Not just custody, but vindication. We gathered our things and walked through the heavy wooden doors. Outside, the afternoon sun felt warm on my face. Noah had been waiting with Caleb in the courthouse lobby. When he saw me, he ran over, his face breaking into a wide smile. Dad! What happened? I knelt down and pulled him into a hug. We're going home, buddy. You and Lily are coming home with me. For real? Not just for visits? For real. He slipped his small hand into mine as we walked down the courthouse steps. Caleb had picked up Lily from her daycare and brought her to meet us. She was skipping around the concrete planters at the bottom of the steps, her curls bouncing in the sunlight. When she saw me, she came running. Daddy! I scooped her up, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. She wrapped her arms around my neck, squeezing tight. Guess what? She asked, pulling back to look at me with serious eyes. What, sweetheart? I'm hungry. Can we have victory pancakes? I laughed, really laughed, for what felt like the first time in months. Victory pancakes it is. As we walked toward the parking lot, Ava fell into step beside me. She leaned in and whispered, It's over for them. For you, it begins. 2 weeks later, I stood in the driveway of our rental, watching Noah pedal circles on his refurbished bike. The October sun caught the maple tree out front, turning its leaves into a canopy of red gold fire against the clear blue sky. The house wasn't much, just a 2-bedroom with faded siding and creaky floors. But it was ours now, stable and secure. Dad! Watch this, Noah called, standing on the pedals to build speed before attempting a small jump off the curb. He landed with a wobble, but stayed upright, turning back to me with a grin that erased months of worry from his face. I gave him a thumbs up. Looking good, buddy. Just remember to bend your knees on the landing. The bike had been a project we'd tackled together last weekend, sanding off rust, replacing the chain, fixing the brakes. $50 at a yard sale had turned into Noah's pride and joy. Something about bringing broken things back to life felt right these days. Through the open window, I could hear Lily humming to herself. I stepped inside to find her cross-legged on the living room rug, surrounded by her collection. A worn shoebox sat open beside her, filled with rocks of every shape and color, quartz, agate, even a few pieces of polished glass rounded by the lake. This one's the queen, she informed me solemnly, holding up a purple-streaked stone. And these are her babies. She pointed to a cluster of pebbles arranged in a neat semicircle. That's quite a royal family, I said, crouching down beside her. She nodded, completely serious. They're my jewels. Like you used to have. I swallowed hard. She remembered the sapphires, though she'd never know how much their loss had meant. These are better, I told her. You found these yourself. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Ava's name flashed on the screen. Got a minute? She asked when I answered. For you? Always. First garnishment payment hit Paula's paycheck yesterday. The court clerk confirmed the money's been posted to your account this morning. I checked my banking app. There it was, the first installment of many. Not a fortune, but a start. Bill Mercer has his bar hearing scheduled for next month, she continued. The ethics committee pulled 3 similar complaints from his file. This could end his career. And Marcus? Grand jury returned the indictment yesterday. 10 counts of fraud, 4 of money laundering. His attorney's already floating plea offers. I leaned against the kitchen counter. The pawn shop? Closed pending prosecution. Davis is cooperating, hoping for leniency. He's agreed to testify about how Paula specifically requested cash for the sapphires. Thank you, Ava. For everything. Just doing my job, she said, but I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. The co-parenting calendar working smoothly? I glanced at the printed schedule magneted to the refrigerator. Surprisingly, yes. Paula shows up exactly on time, follows the rules to the letter. Amazing what court oversight does for someone's behavior. After we hung up, I heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I watched Caleb step out carrying a black binder. Noah waved to him from the yard, still circling on his bike. Caleb returned the wave before heading to the door. Just returning this, he said when I let him in, holding out the binder of evidence we'd compiled. Won't be needing it anymore. Come in for a minute? He shook his head. Gotta get going. Just wanted to drop this off. We stood awkwardly for a moment. We weren't friends exactly, just 2 men united by betrayal who'd found a way forward through the wreckage. He extended his hand. I took it, feeling the firm grip of someone who understood exactly what it meant to lose everything and then rebuild. Take care of those kids, he said. I will. After he drove away, I walked out to my truck, the same one I'd slept in behind that gas station. I ran my hand along its faded paint, remembering nights spent staring at the ceiling liner, listening to the hum of ice machines, wondering if I'd ever have a real home again. Now I parked it in a driveway. Our driveway. Inside, I pulled out a mixing bowl and started measuring flour. Noah came bursting through the door, cheeks flushed from riding. Pancakes? He asked hopefully, spotting the ingredients. You know it. Can you and Lily set the table? They scrambled for plates and forks while I mixed batter, watching them move around our small kitchen with easy familiarity. Lily carefully arranged napkins at each place. Noah counted out forks with exaggerated precision. As I poured the first circle of batter onto the griddle, I thought about those nights in the truck, how impossibly far away this moment had seemed then. Justice doesn't roar. It grinds, but it grinds all the way down, and the betrayed stand taller when it's done. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.